game.
With the new USFL starting up here on April 16th, a lot of people have been wondering, what did the old USFL look like? The United States Football League played for 3 seasons in 1983 through 1985. The league played a spring-summer schedule in each of its active seasons, but the 1986 season was scheduled to be played in the fall directly to compete against the NFL. However, the USFL ceased operations before that season was scheduled to begin. The ideas behind the USFL were conceived in 1965 by a New Orleans businessman, David Dixon, who saw a market for professional football league that would play in the summer when the NFL and college football were in their off-season. Dixon's mindset was really ahead of his time. He had been a key player in the construction of the Louisiana Superdome, as well as the expansion of the NFL into New Orleans in 1967. So he developed the Dixon Plan, which was a blueprint for the USFL based upon securing NFL-caliber stadiums in top TV markets, securing a national TV broadcast, and keep in mind, his idea was to capitalize on the window between the Super Bowl and kickoff of the next season. And this was back in a time when we were not able to just turn on and watch all of our favorite hockey, basketball, baseball teams during the off-season. This really was a great idea. The USFL had no hard salary cap, and because of this, some teams quickly escalated player payrolls to unsustainable levels despite pledges to keep costs under control. On the field, however, the USFL was regarded as a relatively good product. Most coaches and team executives had NFL experience, and many future NFL players and coaches actually started in the US. Now think about this. 3 consecutive Heisman Trophy winners signed with USFL teams directly out of college. Georgia running back Herschel Walker, Boston College quarterback Doug Flutie, and Nebraska running back Mike Rozier. They all signed with the USFL instead of the NFL directly out of college. Future Pro Hall of Fame members such as Reggie White, Gary Zimmerman, Jim Kelly, Steve Young, they all started in the USFL before they went to the NFL. There were also plans to establish 4 franchises in Canada prior to the inaugural season, located in Vancouver, Edmonton, Montreal, and the Toronto-Hamilton Metroplex area. The league also had an indirect impact on scheduling of televised football games. In 1986, the USFL planned to go against the NFL in the fall. They wanted to play on Sunday nights when the NFL did not yet play Sunday night games. Well, 1 year after, ESPN and NFL announced and launched Sunday Night Football in that time slot, and NFL has owned Sunday night primetime slot ever since. The 1983 through 85 drafts were in January. That was when they wanted to play the games in the spring. But then 1986, the draft was held in May, which of course that season never ended up happening. The USFL held an expansion draft in September of '83 for the 6 expansion teams that started play in 1984. In December of 1984, they had a dispersal draft for Chicago, Pittsburgh, Oklahoma, and Michigan. In addition to the 4 college drafts, the league also held 3 USFL territorial drafts that allowed teams to select collegiate players from within their geographic area before they entered the general collegiate draft. They really took advantage of every opportunity that they had to get all of the best names that they could. And think about this, in the early days of the USFL, you didn't even have to make a decision between watching your favorite team and watching some of your favorite players because they played on opposite sides of the calendar. Of the 4 first overall draft picks in its history, only 1984 top pick Mike Rozier actually played in the USFL. Dan Marino and Jerry Rice were also first overall picks in the USFL draft, but they decided to go straight to the NFL and play for the Dolphins and 49ers respectively. Of course, that was a great decision for both of them. Now, one thing that is very interesting about the USFL, both past and present, are some of the rule changes. Now, in the past, rules were basically a hybrid of NFL and college rule books. The league's rule on stopping the clock was an example of the hybrid approach. Outside the 2-minute warning, the clock ran between plays after a first down like in the NFL, while after the warning, it stopped between the end of the play that earned the first down and the placement of the ball back into the play to allow the chain crew to get back into place, as is done in college football. Like college football, it recognized the 2-point conversion level. That would not be put into the NFL rules until 1994. Also, unlike other professional leagues, but similar to college football, the USFL allowed the usage of a small plastic tee for extra point and field goal. Another thing that's worth noting about the original USFL is that for its final season in 1985, they used a method of challenging officials' rulings on the field via instant replay, using a system that is almost identical to that being used by the NFL today. Keep in mind, this was in 1985. But at the end of the day, they really did put out football worth watching. And like I said, the best part about it was that it was played in the spring, so you didn't have to choose between watching your favorite teams and watching some of your favorite players. Now, that is not actually where the downfall of the USFL began. They had financial issues from the beginning. Only some owners were willing to put in so much money, other owners might not have even had the same amount of money to put in. So out of the 23 USFL teams, only 5 teams played for the league's entire 3-season duration without relocating or changing their names at all. The Denver Gold, the Los Angeles Express, the Birmingham Stallions, the New Jersey Generals, and the Tampa Bay Bandits. Only the latter 3 teams would have remained on this list if the league had continued in 1986. That would have only 3 of the original teams would have stayed true to their original identities. In August 1984, the USFL voted to move from a spring to a fall schedule in 1986 to compete directly with the NFL. This was done at the urging of New Jersey Generals majority owner Donald Trump and a handful of other owners as a way to force a merger between the leagues. As part of this strategy, the USFL filed an antitrust lawsuit against the NFL in 1986, and a jury ruled that the NFL had violated anti-monopoly laws. However, in a victory in name only, the USFL was awarded a judgment of just $1, which under antitrust laws was tripled to $3. The court decision effectively ended the USFL's existence. The league never played its planned 1986 season, and by the time it folded, the league had lost over $163 million, which in 2021 would have been about $389 million. On August 4th, 4 days after the announcement of the verdict, the USFL owners voted to suspend operations for the 1986 season, with the intent of returning in 1987, capitalizing on the upcoming 1987 NFL players' strike. Unfortunately, many of its players had signed contracts with NFL teams after the 1985 season, and the league was in some $160 million in debt at the time. The USFL appealed, but it was rejected by the United States Court of Appeals for Second Circuit in 1988. This decision ended any chance of the USFL returning to the field at the time, and the league's 6 remaining teams voted to formally disband shortly afterward. However, because the USFL was at least nominally the winner of the lawsuit, the NFL was required to cover the USFL's attorney fees and costs of litigation, and the USFL was awarded over $5.5 million in attorney fees and over $62,000 in court costs. After it was appealed by the NFL, the court ordered them to pay up. The USFL finally received a check for $3.76 in damages in 1990. To this day, that check has never been cashed.
They will go on 4th down and 17 from the 20. 2:06. They have no timeouts remaining. They being the Oakland Invaders.
The ball has to go inside the 3-yard line to get a first down, at the very least, to maintain possession.
Hand up. Second safety. A bear to the corner, and no good. Intended for Gordon Banks, and defended by Jonathan Sutton. 28-24, the Stars trying to win their second successive, and they have played in all 3 of the USFL championship games. They go to the fall in 1986, so this is the end of spring and summer football. And the only thing I have to say is good luck. I wish them well.
But they can do more than play in the USFL. Like we can do this. And this. Check us out. The USFL, where football is still a game.